This is the annual meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation. I'll ask that it please come to order. First, I would like to announce that Group W is televising this program live. So if you've never been on television before, you can see yourself, or you could see yourself if you're at home now, but tomorrow night at 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock tomorrow night on Channel 6 if you happen to have cable. Otherwise, it'll be on tape and we can show it again sometime. Now, to begin the meeting, will you please rise for the invocation to be given by Reverend Joe Cooper of the Unity Church of Leisure World. Reverend Cooper.
In the very beginning of this historical meeting for Golden Rain Foundation, it is my privilege to call your attention to the one presence and the one power, God Almighty. Shall we turn our attention now? Dear God, our Father, in our unity of purpose, we are guided by infinite wisdom and prospered by divine love. We ask your blessing upon this gathering, upon the business of the day, the reports of the year. We ask your blessing on each and individual, that we all may go out of here uplifted, inspired, and radiant with joy for the accomplishments of this august body. Thank you very much for this privilege. Amen.
Will you please remain standing and join with former President of the Golden Rain Board, Maurice O'Hare, when he leads the Pledge of Allegiance.
Kindly face the flag, place your hand over your heart, and join with me as we renew our pledge to allegiance of this grand old country, USA. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Members and friends of the Golden Rain Foundation of Seal Beach Leisure World, greetings and welcome to our annual meeting. This meeting has been convened in compliance with Article 3, Section 2 of the bylaws of the Golden Rain Foundation, which reads in part as follows. The annual meeting of members shall be held on the second Tuesday of June of each year at 2 p.m. of said day. Article 3, Section 3 requires that a written notice shall be sent to each member not less than 7 days before each annual meeting. Mr. Secretary, is there such a certification that the requirement of this Section 3 has been complied with?
As Secretary for Golden Rain Foundation, I hereby certify that on May 31, 1985, a notice of annual meeting was mailed to all members of this corporation in accordance with Article 3, Section 3 of the bylaws of this corporation, dated 6/11/85, Secretary Francis W. Looney.
Thank you. I find that the certification is valid, and therefore I declare the 1985 annual meeting of the members of the Golden Rain Foundation, Seal Beach Leisure World, to be and is now in session. The first order of business relates to the minute of the proceedings over the annual meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation on June the 12th, 1984. And the chair recognizes Mr. George Supple, former president of this board, for that purpose. Mr. Supple.
Mr. President, I move that the reading of the minutes of the 1984 annual meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation be dispensed with, and that they be accepted and filed in the corporate records exactly as heretofore printed and published.
I second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. It has been moved and seconded that the reading of the minutes of the 1984 Golden Rain Foundation annual meeting of members be dispensed with, and that they be accepted and filed in the corporate records exactly as heretofore printed and published. All of those who are in favor indicate their approval by saying aye, and all of those opposed, no. Will you please? The motion carried. Article 5, Section 2 of our bylaws contains the following sentence. All of the corporate powers shall be exercised by and through the Board of Directors. I'd now like to introduce the present Golden Rain Foundation directors seated in their places of authority, and I ask that each director please raise their hand when being introduced. I'll do this in the order of the mutual corporation numbers. From Mutual 1, Roseburg, and Mr. Charles Dreher. From Mutual 2, Mr. D.H. McKenzie, and Mr. Howard McCurdy. From Mutual 3, Francis Looney, Secretary of the Board. From Mutual 4, Mr. John Broadus, Vice President of the Board. From Mutual 5, Dennis Yates. From Mutual 6, Mr. Holland Thompson. From Mutual 7, Mr. Loyal Peterson. From Mutual 8, Mr. Paul Batson. From Mutual 9, Mr. Irving Hoffman. From Mutual 10, James Murchie, that's me, and I'm President of the Board. Mutual 11, Mr. James Clow, who's Assistant Secretary of the Board. Mutual 12, Sabina Holland. Mutual 14, Mr. DeVries is absent. Mutual 15, Mr. William Key. Mutual 16, Ms. Viola Render. And Mutual 17, Mr. Robert Jeske. I have observed the performance of all of these directors during this year, and I would like to commend each one for their devotion to the welfare of all of the members of the Golden Rain Foundation and to the general well-being and reputation and the prosperity of Seal Beach Leisure World. Special recognition of these services performed on behalf of the Golden Rain Board is appropriate at this time for two directors who died while in office. Mark Singleton, the director from Mutual 16 for 4 years, died on August the 25th, 1984. Mr. Albert Kellett, director for Mutual 15 for 1 year, died on November the 30th, 1984. The Board of Directors wishes to extend its sympathies to the families of both of these directors. I wish also to recognize the services of 3 directors who are retiring from the Board after today. On my left, Mr. Looney from Mutual 3 has served for 5 years, during which time he has served as Secretary of the Board for 2 years, Chairman of the Resales Committee for 3 years, as well as a member of several other committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Klaus, sitting next to Mr. Looney from Mutual 11, has served as a director for the last 4 years. For 2 years, he has been the Assistant Secretary of the Board and has also been the Chairman of the Recreation Committee and a member of several other committees of the Board. Mr. Klaus. Mr. Hoffman from Mutual 9 has served as a director of this board since 1981, performing faithfully as a member of many of the committees of the board. And we're grateful to Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman. All 3 of these directors will be missed on the board, and we wish them success and happiness in their new retirement as they pursue their own special interests. Now, it is my privilege now to introduce 3 elected directors to the board who are seated down in the front. Will you please rise and be recognized when I call your names? And will you stay standing for about a minute so the TV cameras can pick you up? First is Ethel Anderson from Mutual 3. Thank you. The next is Irving Zeiger from Mutual 11. I regret that Mr. Eichel from Mutual 9 is on an extended trip and was not able to be here today. But we do welcome each of you to our board and hope that your services on the board will be as rewarding both to you and to the foundation as it has been to other members of the board. As an announcement, though, I will mention that the new board of directors will meet at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon in the conference room for the purpose of reorganizing the board. In accordance with the provisions of Article 5 of Section 2 of the Golden Rain Foundation bylaws, the annual meeting of members is the time and place for receiving reports from certain officers and directors bearing on the activities of your board during the past year, and for hearing such recommendations regarding the future of Leisure World as may seem appropriate. At this point, I would like to introduce in turn each of the officers and committee chairmen who will be reporting on the work of their activities for their respective spheres of responsibility during the past year. In no way is a sequence of reporting an indication of the responsibilities or the importance of the communities or the committees. They are all important to the work of the foundation. I'd like to call first on Paul Batson, who is chairman of the Finance Committee and also treasurer of the board. Mr. Batson, please.
Mr. President, board members, honored guests, and resident members of the Golden Rain Foundation. The audit report by Pete Marwick Mitchell and Company for the year 1984 certifies that the financial statement present fairly the financial position of the Golden Rain Foundation as of December the 31st, 1984, and the results of its operation and the changes in its financial position for the year ending December 31st, 1984, in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles applied on a consistent basis. You have all received a copy of the financial report, and I am sure that you are gratified by the continuing improvement in the overall growth of our fiscal position. Current assets are up over $1 million from 1983 and are at a ratio of 2.66 to 1 over current liabilities. This figure was further improved on March 1st, 1985 with the sale to Los Alamitos Medical Center of $169,181 in medical inventory and $135,000 in furniture and fixtures. The 5 cost centers of administration, recreation, medical clinic, community health service, and physical property generated $772,900 of income over expenses during the year, of which $259,703 has been paid to the mutuals and $513,197 will be paid to the members. To some, the figures on the annual report seem astronomical, and there are busy minds in our community which start thinking of ways to spend this so-called surplus capital. Let me assure you that with 22-year-old buildings, roadways, water and sewer systems, and a pressing need for work and storage area, there is no such thing as surplus capital. I would like to thank the hardworking members of the Finance Committee who have been guardians of the capital funds this past year and have contributed so much on the 2 major problems of committee work. First, the medical accounts receivable, which reached $867,872 in July of 1984, and which is down to $130,000 as of this date. The acquisition of insurance to safeguard the physical properties as well as the operation of all of our facilities dominated the rest of our deliberations. The Finance Committee was made up Robert Jaski, Vice Chairman, D.H. McKinsey, Sabina Holland, Loyal Peterson, John Broadus, and Francis Looney. I would particularly like to thank Don McKinsey for bringing to this committee the experience acquired during his 21 years on the Board of Directors and his 2 terms as Golden Rain Foundation President. His wisdom and expertise were most helpful. I also want to make a special thanks to Mr. Francis Looney, whom we shall sorely miss in the Finance Committee and on the Golden Rain Board. Thank you also to our hardworking James Murchie, President of the Golden Rain Foundation, who has always kept our deliberations within the policy bounds of the Foundation and also within Robert's Rules of Order. We also want to thank our staff support, Mr. Jeff Lafferty, the Administrator, Mr. Isidore Uzdansky, the Controller, Mrs. Linda Powers, the Golden Rain Foundation Accountant, and Ms. Janet Blackmore, the Secretary, who took minutes of our meetings. Respectfully submitted, Paul Batson, Chairman, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Batson. The next report is by Donald McKenzie, who is Chairman of the Medical Committee. Mr. McKenzie, please.
Mr. President, board members, and members of the Golden Rain Foundation, Seal Beach. During 1984, the Medical Committee acted on the following items. Number 1, the purchase of an automated analyzer was recommended to the board. Number 2, a Jewish family service proposal for a room in the clinic 1 day a week for counseling purposes was turned down by the committee. Number 3, a proposal from 2 dentists to use a room in the clinic for dental services was turned down. 4th, the committee was advised there would be no change in the fees charged by Goodhue Ambulance Service in the 1985 contract. 5, the Leisure World Women's Club offered to donate money to purchase traction equipment for the physical therapy department. This was approved, but action delayed pending the takeover of the clinic. 6, the Golden Age Foundation proposed to purchase 21 additional Lifeline units. There are 85 units in Leisure World apartments at this time. In July, the committee was informed that several hospital groups were proposing to update our clinic. Many months of study resulted in the lease of the medical facilities to the Los Alamitos Medical Center, LAMC, effective March 1, 1985. The sale of clinic furnishings and equipment to LMAC has been consummated for approximately $135,000. The sale of inventory of pharmacy drugs and medical supplies in the approximate amount of $167,000 also has been completed. All Golden Rain medical personnel were transferred to LMAC on March 1, 1985. All services previously offered by Golden Rain Foundation have been continued by LAMC. A survey for the enhancement of services in the hands of the advisory board and will be sent to residents for additional input. The contract with LMAC calls for upgrading of medical equipment within the first 12 months with an investment of not less than $400,000. The radiology suite will be their first consideration. Following the takeover of the clinic, the committee asked the Golden Rain Board to rescind the policies relating to medical department, its operations, and personnel. At February the 25th meeting, the committee took action to revise Policy 5120 covering committee functions. The revised functions of the medical committee are to review the performance of the contractor, meet monthly with clinical management, and report to the Golden Rain Board. The committee will act as an overviewer of the contractor's performance and will refrain at all times from any regulatory or supervisory activities, which are the functions of the contractor. I wish to thank the Administrator, Mr. Lafferty, and his staff for their cooperation to our committee over the past term, and to thank the committee members for their attendance and input into our deliberations. They are Dennis Yates, Vice Chairman, Rose Berg, Charles Dreher, Olin Thompson, Irving Hoffman, Sabina Holland, Mark Singleton, deceased, Robert Jaskey, and Viola Render. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKenzie. Now, the next report will be 3 reports to be given by Mr. John Broadus, our Vice President, who is chairman of 3 committees, and while he has the microphone, we'll let him get it all off his chest. Mr. Broadus, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, honored guests, and members of the Golden Rain Foundation. Chairman, who replaced former member Mark Singleton. Irving Hoffman, William Key, who replaced Albert Kellett. Howard McCurdy and Holland Thompson for the contributions and interest in the work of the committee. Some of the actions that were implemented by the committee with board approval during the past year were: number 1, painting and repair of the interior of the security building. Number 2, installation of acoustical tile in the security office. Number 3, recommended hours of operation at the St. Andrews Gate be changed from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily to 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. daily. Number 4, recommended that visitor passes be issued the 2nd and 3rd weeks of January each year instead of the 1st week as in the past, in order to relieve the excessive crowding of passengers on the minibuses immediately following New Year's Day. Some statistics of interest from our security report for a 10-month period from July 1 through April 30, 1985 are: number 1, 554 responses from the Seal Beach Police Department on calls from security and residents. 2, 1,705 resident investigations requested by relatives, friends, or concerned neighbors. 3, 895 trips to residents' apartments to unlock their door after they had locked themselves out. 4, 75 traffic accidents. 5, 371 parking violation citations issued. 6, 74 moving violation citations issued. These are just a part of the services provided by our security department. Our security officers are doing an excellent job for our community. Our minibus department is doing an outstanding job. From January 1, 85 through April 30th, 1985, the buses traveled a total of 39,960 miles and transported a total of 134,405 passengers. My personal thanks to all of the drivers whose performance is outstanding. I wish to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to Security Chief Don Moore and Assistant Chief Harold Musgrave for their contributions to the committee in the reporting of happenings in the department. My thanks also to the entire security force for their performance of their many and varied duties, sometimes under adverse conditions. A job well done. My sincere thanks and appreciation to Terry Sears, Transportation Superintendent, recently promoted from bus supervisor. Congratulations. An outstanding performance here too in the smooth operation of our minibus fleet. Words cannot express my thanks and appreciation for the outstanding job done by our Secretary, Gloria Wall, who on Friday afternoon at each meeting kept the minutes of those meetings. You have the patience of Job. Thank you, Gloria. The past and final year as chairman has been a very rewarding and enjoyable experience. Respectfully submitted, John W. Broadus. Again, Mr. President, members of the board, and members, honored guests, and members of Golden Rain Foundation. This is the 1985 annual report of the Executive Committee. The Executive Committee is composed of the 5 elected officers of the Board of Directors and the appointed chairman of the committees of the board. In 1984-85, there were 8 members on this committee as follows. I am chairman, Mr. J. A. Murchie, Mr. F. W. Looney, Mr. P. W. Batson, Mr. J. W. Clow, Mr. D. H. McKenzie, Mr. H. E. McCurdy, and Mr. H. K. Thompson. The responsibilities of the Executive Committee are to receive monthly personnel reports, act in emergencies on behalf of the board, to perform such other activities as assigned, to review and approve assignments of supervisory and administrative staff, act on requests for retirement cash payments,
in excess of $5,000, and review and recommend changes in operation schedules, job standards, and pay rates. During the year, 11 meetings were held, which resulted in the approval of 3 employee appointments to major supervisory positions, a total of 13 recommendations to the board for action, and 4 separate pension fund withdrawals in excess of $5,000. I want to thank all the committee members for their dedicated interest and their many contributions to the work of the committee. Special thanks also to Mr. John Lafferty, our administrator, for his contributions and cooperation with this committee. Words cannot express my deep appreciation for the excellent performance by our Golden Rain Board Secretary, Liz Gruner. Keeping track of all that is said and done in all the committee meetings that she attends is the most difficult assignment. The minutes of the meetings always tell all of us what went on. You're a real professional. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, John W. Broadus. Now, while I still have your attention, another committee, the 1984 or the 85 Annual Report of the Ad Hoc Committee, Land Use 84. At the Board of Directors interim meeting on October 9th, 1984, President Murchie appointed 3 Golden Rain Foundation members and 3 members at large from the community to study the development of the 1.8 acres and possible adjacent acreage in the northwest corner of Leisure World. The committee is comprised of the following members. I happen to be chairman, Director Howard McCurdy, Director James Clow, Mrs. Elise Curry, President of Mutual 8, Mr. James N. Bartell, a former Golden Rain Board member, and Mrs. Ann J. Springate, Secretary of Mutual 15. Mr. James A. Murchie is an ex officio member of the committee, and our administrator, Mr. J.F. Lafferty, attends all meetings. The appointments were ratified by the board and announced at the open board meeting on October 16th, 1984 by President Murchie. This committee will continue without change as appointed. The first meeting was held on March 27th, 1985, and Mr. James Bartell was unanimously elected as vice chairman. The committee determined that the following categories be defined as possible uses of the land: recreational, commercial, Golden Rain needs, housing, and religious. The first consideration has been commercial use, and this will be investigated thoroughly. This committee will meet monthly, and after all uses are considered, the recommendation to the board will be for the use deemed best for the community. Respectfully submitted, John W. Broadus, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Broadus. That's a long chore you had there. The next report will be by Mr. Holland Thompson, Chairman of the Publications Committee. Mr. Thompson, please.
Greetings to all those present. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Murchie for appointing me to serve as Chairman of the Publication Committee, and to thank Rose Berg for her assistance and support as Vice Chairman. I would also like to thank Sabina Holland, Viola Render, Paul Batson, and Charles Dreher for their contributions as committee members. As described by the Golden Rain Foundation Policy Number 5125, the function of this committee is to act as an advisory and consulting capacity. Among other things, its duties include analyzing requests for action from residents, mutuals, GRF board members, and administration staff members. Specifically, the committee's area of activity includes all problems arising from the publication of the Golden Rain News. I am pleased to be able to report that during the course of the past year, there have been very few major problems that we have had to deal with, and those that we did encounter were resolved satisfactorily, we think. Perhaps the biggest of those arose was the use of a new front page masthead for the newspaper using the words Leisure World News. This was done with the intent of more definitively labeling the paper as serving the community of Leisure World. Despite similar wording being used in years gone by, we were met with strong opposition from Golden West Publishing, publishers of the Leisure World News in Laguna Hills. Rather than become involved in a costly dispute, and at the recommendation of both the GRF attorney and administrator, the masthead was redesigned to include the official Leisure World logo and the name Golden Rain News. At the request and recommendation of David Saunders, manager of publications, a process camera was purchased for the purpose of converting regular black and white photographs into the halftones or veloxes, which are required for the printing process. Previously, this had been done by an outside company. With our own camera, we have saved considerable money in the weekly production bill and at the same time gained more control and capabilities for various photographic needs in our own premises. There was one staff change. Cassandra Joseph was hired as a reporter photographer to replace Carla Hamilton, whose husband took an overseas job. Cassandra has done an excellent job and is becoming both well-known and well-liked in the community. An expanded calendar feature was implemented in the news and has met with very favorable responses from most Leisure World residents. The Christmas issue of 1984 was highlighted with a full-page front cover in full color. This was the second time ever our paper had run full color, and this year was a very good quality, even better than the previous year. On November 29, 1984, the News hosted a publicity workshop that was attended by over 100 residents, most of whom were club presidents or publicity chairmen. It was quite informative and very successful in showing how our paper is produced and how residents can best help the newspaper staff to get their publicity into the paper. There was a second workshop last month. On the average, for the past year, our newspaper has been 4 pages larger than than during the previous year. This has allowed more space for photographs and news items and was still accomplished while operating the department with earnings from advertising and various other sources in excess of costs for production. We should all be thankful to have a manager of publications with the experience and dedication of Mr. Saunders. Much has been accomplished during his time as manager. I believe I can speak for the entire Publications Committee in saying it has been a most interesting and enjoyable year. We are pleased to have been able to serve our community. Respectfully submitted, Holland Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And the next report will be by Mr. James Clow, our Assistant Secretary, Chairman of the Recreation Committee. Mr. Clow.
Mr. President Murchie, Mr. Lafferty, members of the Board of Directors, fellow members and guests. As Chairman of the Recreation Committee for the year 1984-85, I had the pleasure of working with a very cooperative committee consisting of the following members: Roseberg, Vice Chairman; Howard McCurdy, Dennis Yates, Loyal Peterson, Hugh DeVries, and William Key. The Recreation Committee works with and channels a large amount of funds, and it's all your money that we spend for your enjoyment. For the year 1984-85, that amount was $1,400,000. I hope the board and residents at this meeting keep in mind that the Recreation Committee discusses and plans many functions for the Physical Property Department to continue to consider and finally accomplish. Many policies were reviewed and discussed this year relating to recreation practices in upgrading and preserving Leisure World benefits. The following actions were taken by the Recreation Committee. Requested the board limit access to the use of a clubhouse by outside clubs where a member lives in Leisure World to only once a year. Recommended the installation of a window air conditioner in the men's pool room at Clubhouse 1. Recommended reversion of policy number 1411 to handle room assignments for New Year's Eve. Recreation activity book formed by Carol and Joyce. Requested the board to approve a policy to limit smoking at the amphitheater to the last 5 rows only. Approve new gold drapes for the stage at Clubhouse 4. Recommended the Physical Property Committee to obtain a project number for the change-out of lighting in community facilities. Requested the Physical Property Committee to assign a project number to paint the inside and outside of clubhouses 1 and 3. Recommended the board approve a liftomatic hot pool cover. Recommended the board establish a project number to cover the large swimming pool. Approve the installation of an air conditioner in card room at Clubhouse 2. Approve the installation of an electrical outlet for vacuuming our cars at the west end of the parking lot at Clubhouse 2. Approved fully draped stage wall and drapes to cover the side doors of the El Dorado side of Clubhouse 2, which was donated by the Women's Club of Leisure World. Recommended the board establish a project number to provide new drapery for all rooms in Clubhouse 3. Recommended the footlights on stage in Clubhouse 2 to be made flush with the stage floor for better viewing. Approved the installation of an air pump for bicycles below the physical property office and next to the stock transfer office. Requested a policy prohibiting the hanging of anything on the drapes to protect the drapery in the clubhouses. Recommended the Arts and Crafts Festival to be held on a Friday in November for 1 day only. Approved the donation of the movie The Four Horsemen of Apocalypse by a Leisure World resident, Leon Brock. Recommended the board approve a Super Trooper conversion kit for the spotlight and at the amphitheater. Approved the questionnaire was sent to all Leisure World organizations regarding space requirements and asking if they wanted the amphitheater covered. Finally, I will give you some of the activity reports of our community. Clubhouse 1, we had 1,214 events, and participants were 91,200. Clubhouse 2, we had 764 events. Participants 109,152. Clubhouse 3, 4,081 events with participants of 182,685. Clubhouse 4, 1,819 events. Participants 105,834. Amphitheater 1,013. Participants 82,777. Golf course rounds 57,912. Lawn bowling 1,357. Swimming pool and hot pool 35,167. Shuffleboard games 55,000. 24,000 participants. Table tennis games 100,000. Participants 10,000. Due to the restoration of the community facilities for 1984, there were incidents where buildings were closed or partially shut off, which caused cancellation of normally scheduled events when no other accommodations could be found. In closing, I want to thank President James Murchie for appointing me as chairman of the Recreation Committee. Also, I want to thank Mr. Fred Cooper, Manager of Community Relations, and his staff for their guidance. James W. Cloud, Chairman of the Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Clow. The next report will be given by Francis Looney, Secretary of the Board and Chairman of the Resales Committee. Let me hold that for you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. President, members of the board, and members of the Golden Rain Foundation, and guests. The primary function of the Resales Committee is to review the performance of the contractor under the sales agreement, and also that of the Golden Rain Foundation under its mutual management agreement as it applies to the resale of shares of stock or condominiums in the mutuals. In response to that charge, the committee met 10 times in the past year, and I want to amend that right away. We met once this morning, so it met 11 times last year. An emergency meeting this morning to adopt the budget for 1986. A review of the agenda of those meetings reveals that the committee acted upon a variety of issues, including 1, the 1985 resales budget, 2, the semi-annual review of the contractor's performance under the sales agreement, 3, a new concept for the advertising program, 4, a review of the 1984 Resales Operations Report, 5, a revision of the resales agreement, and 6, an updating of a number of board policies affecting resales operations. In the matter of the budget, there is always a problem in the resales operation of trying to predict sales volume 18 months in advance. Despite the high level of sales in the first 6 months of 1984, the committee chose to adopt a conservative goal of 400 sales as a basis for budgeting in 1985. Therefore, the only significant increase over the 84 budget occurred in salaries, wages, and benefits, with committee recommendation to grant the same increases for resales office personnel as granted to Golden Rain employees. No increases were made in the sales commissions, brokerage fees, escrow fees, or transfer fees. In August, the committee conducted a 6-month review of the resales agreement and the contractor's performance. The consensus was that no changes be made at that time. The contractor reported that the sales office was running into the problem of being unable to find mutual directors to do the interviewing of prospective buyers. The Director of Sales agreed to take this matter up with the President's Council for resolution. In September, the advertising agency representative presented a detailed analysis of the responses to our ads, indicating that the Press-Telegram in Long Beach, the Los Angeles Times in Orange County, and Senior Life publication have the best pulling power. The committee voted to adopt the insertion schedules and media selection recommended. In a later meeting, the committee studied a new display ad which features our Leisure World globe with the banner head, "Why 9,000 Seal Beach residents are on top of the world." The concept was approved for use in our 1985 campaign, and you may have seen that ad running in the Times or the Press-Telegram or any of the other papers that we use. In any discussion of the role and effectiveness of advertising, we feel that recognition is due to word-of-mouth advertising. Our residents are a principal source of new buyer prospects, and the Resales Committee wishes to thank all our foundation members for being the best friend the sales office could ask for. In January, the committee recommended and the board adopted a resolution in recognition of the fact that in 1984, new records were established in the number of apartments sold and the number of escrows closed. High sales volume has continued into the early months of this year. Current sales volume is declining somewhat as we approach a nearly sold-out status. On some days, there are as few as 20 apartments for sale out of a total stock of 6,482 cooperative units. In the last few months, the committee has been engaged in a review of the number of board policies affecting resales. Some of these need updating as a result of new state legislation increasing age eligibility from 52 to 55. Some are related to redefining the role of the medical clinic in establishing medical eligibility for membership. And some deal with financial eligibility criteria now that the medical clinic is no longer a Golden Rain operation. At the time this report is written, the committee has made its recommendations to the board on these policies, including a revision of the sales agreement to bring it into line with changes recommended by the committee, by the contractor, and by the foundation attorney. For all of the above-mentioned activity, I wish to thank the members of the Resales Committee. This is my third and last year chairman of the Resales Committee, and I think the members this year did more work and gave me less trouble than previous committees. By name, I wish to thank Hugh DeVries, who is absent, who served as vice chairman. James Clow, to my immediate left, Irving Hoffman, Don McKenzie, Dennis Yates, former member Albert Kellett, and William Key, who replaced Mr. Kellett. I would also like to thank the administrator, Mr. John Lafferty, and Mr. Chuck Brisky, both of whom attended all of our meetings, and without whom the meetings couldn't have been conducted because they provided the answers to the questions we had and the information which guided us. And also to Gloria Wall, who served so effectively as the secretary of the Resales Committee this year. Respectively submitted, Francis W. Looney, chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Looney. Last but certainly not the least, I'm going to call on Mr. Howard McCurdy, the chairman of the Physical Property Committee, to give his report. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Board members and members of the Golden Rain Foundation and guests, you've been sitting quite a while listening. If you'd all give a slight wiggle now, I'll proceed. First, I am pleased to introduce the members of the Physical Property Committee who have contributed their time and energy to the task of ensuring that the facilities within Leisure World are maintained in a manner satisfactory to the residents and at the least possible cost. Mr. Broadus, the Vice Chairman, who has served on this committee for 4 years. Mr. Clow, who has served for 1 year. Mr. DeVries, who has served for 1 year. Mr. Dreyer, who has served for 2 years. Mr. Jaski, who has served for 2 years. Mr. Peterson, who has served for 4 years. The function of this committee is to originate and develop ideas, plans, and programs concerning the physical property at Leisure World, and determine which of the above are for the good of the residents. The committee is called upon to make recommendations to the Golden Rain Board and act in an advisory capacity to the administration whenever called upon to do so. The committee's field of endeavor includes streets and sidewalks, sewers, water, drainage, power, lights, as well as grounds, building, and equipment maintenance, replacement, and modifications. It is also charged with coordination responsibility on all construction service bids and bidding procedures. During the year, the committee recommended 29 projects to the Golden Rain Board for their approval. Some of the projects were 19 equipment purchases totaling $110,036, 18 building and equipment modifications, $188,614, 9 service contracts at $310,094, 3 paving projects, $107,312, 8 miscellaneous projects at $52,194. This does not include the many routine maintenance projects that were discussed with management at our regular monthly meetings. The Physical Property Department has 142 employees, including grounds, service maintenance, inspection service, repair shop, bus personnel, and the switchboard operators, as well as the department's management personnel. The current budget for this department is $4,253,385, which constitutes 32% of the Golden Rain Foundation budget. The department and this committee works constantly to improve service and obtain all possible cost savings consistent with maintaining the property and Leisure World at its present high standards. In closing, I wish to thank all the committee members and Mr. Hanson, the department manager, and Mrs. Furlong, secretary, for their generous cooperation. Respectfully submitted, Howard E. McCurdy, Chairman, Physical Property Committee.
Thank you, Mr. McCurdy. The contents of these reports will be published in the Golden Rain News. And as president of the board, I wish to express my appreciation to each chairperson for their report and to thank every member of each committee for the services performed and all of the energies expended. My sincere appreciation is also extended to the department heads and the staff members who have contributed so much to the many accomplishments achieved throughout the year. Now, I know that you've been sitting very quietly and that you are getting very restless sitting there, so why don't we just take a little 10-minute break, and I'm sure that the television station can find something to do in that 10 minutes. Would you please resume your seats so we can go on with the meeting?
doing real good.
Yes.
Oh, the best is yet. The center camera is the one that's on. If you Yep.
Well, we'll resume the meeting now, and I have a report to give also. Members of the board, foundation members, and guests. Welcome to the 22nd annual meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation. And a special welcome to our new members who have joined us today for their first annual meeting. And also to those faithful few who regularly attend not only all of our annual meetings, but also all of the irregular monthly meetings. The Golden Rain Foundation was formed to serve several purposes, primarily to provide a wide range of services to the landlord corporations called mutuals, and to act as trustee for the trust created by those mutuals that include such things as our recreational, medical, and administrative operations. And finally, to operate those facilities and those owned directly by the foundation to provide services to each of you as members. The board of directors before you is the governing body of the foundation, and their function is to set policies for the multiple operations of the foundation, to give advice and consent on fiscal matters within the bounds of those policies. In order to perform these assigned tasks, the foundation has contracted with a professional management company to administer the day-to-day operations and provide management for our 186 full-time and 136 part-time employees. We as a foundation expect to stay within our 1985 budget this year, which, after adjustments due to the cessation of operation in the medical facilities, will amount to some $10.5 million. Internally, the board of directors operates through its 8 standing committees who have reported to you. And the chairman of these committees have given fairly complete reports of the 1984 and part of the 85 operations. It is at the committee level that proposals and problems are studied and researched, and then their recommendations are made to the entire board. Requests for consideration of projects or expression of points of view from our membership should be addressed to the appropriate committee for a proper hearing. The most critical decision made by the board of directors in several years involves the Golden Rain Foundation Medical Clinic and Community Health operation. As Mr. McKenzie has reported to you, these operations have been contracted out to Los Alamitos Medical Center. And that decision was the result of some 6 months of detailed study of several proposals and hundreds of hours of work by the board members and staff. It was not an easy decision, and it is hoped that the results will be beneficial to the whole of Leisure World. Last year, Mr. McCurdy reported to you on impending legislation regarding age restriction on housing. That legislation was passed by the California legislature and became effective on January the 1st, 1985. Among other things, the legislation refers to and defines what senior housing is, and that's that is specially designed and accessible housing for senior citizens. It defines the qualifying resident or senior citizen as one who is 85 years of age or older. 85. Ha! All right. I knew there'd be some humor here someplace. Yeah, I'll correct that to make it only 55. And it also permits a younger spouse, a physical provider, or a financial provider to reside with the qualifying resident. Now, this law does affect Leisure World, Seal Beach, as well as all other senior citizens housing, and is of a great deal of concern to the Golden Rain Foundation. The future of Leisure World and the kind of community it will become is the responsibility of the 17 boards of directors of the mutual corporations and the Golden Rain Foundation. The 16 mutual corporations and the foundation have historically striven for continuity of concept and action in the preservation of our unique way of life. There is every evidence that this will continue. And those of you who are concerned about Leisure World have an ample opportunity to serve on these boards in one of the 135 volunteer directorships available. I want to say in closing that the board of directors has worked exceptionally hard over the last year and has done a fine job. And I want to thank each of the directors for the dedication to their responsibilities and their service to the community. Also, special recognition to our administrator, Mr. Lafferty, for his helpful attitude and invaluable assistance to the work of the board and each of its committees. I can't close without saying that our recording secretary, Liz Grunert, who sits on the end over here, has performed yeoman service to the board and 3 of its committees over the year. Not only that, Liz is the best of the best office secretaries and has made my job very much easier. And a special thanks to you, Liz. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce an individual that you've met many times before, Mr. William A. Williams of Price, Williams, Russell, attorneys and counsel, engaged by the Golden Rain Foundation to give opinions and advice in areas of the law, and to prepare documents, represent us in legal actions or negotiations, and any other services appropriate to the attorney-client relationship. Mr. Williams, please.
President Murchie, members of the board, members of the foundation, guests of the board, I'm very pleased to be here again, and as President Murchie indicated, this is the 22nd annual meeting, and this is the 22nd annual meeting either I or someone I've sent to the meeting from my office has been here. We're becoming more than lawyers, we're becoming here historians. I have difficulty every year trying to decide what I should tell you about because most of you probably realize that Leisure World at Seal Beach, having 9,000 to 10,000 people, is probably larger than maybe 4,000 to 5,000 towns in the city sphere in this country. In Midwest, this be a good-sized city. And so really, we're more than corporate counsel. We are kind of your city attorney. And we engage in almost every aspect of the law that we would if we were representing a city, except the selling of municipal bonds, and I'm working on that. We have just a couple of things that I'd touch on because there are too many. Every report that you've heard today, generally during the year, there's some aspect of it that involves legal action of some kind. During this year, I think this year, we will probably see the end of our necessity to procure the permits related to Mutual 17, and I think probably in the next month Mutual 17 will be entirely sold. And George Supple, who was a president during the year that we started that, I think, I don't know now, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And we've had a long history with it, but it's almost sold. And I think it's something you may recall when we were here hoping someday it would be finished. And now it's a reality and just about completely occupied. President Murchie indicated to you the age discrimination legislation. It's something that we're still working on. For whether you accept it as such or realize it, it is, in the view of some, an attempt to impair the lifestyle of a community such as Leisure World. Most of you moved in here with the concept of what it was from the standpoint of who your neighbors would be from a age standpoint. There's an attempt to severely impact that concept. We have disagreed with the law, but we must of course abide by it, and we are. With respect to that legislation, however, both your administrator and I and other areas with the same type of problem are still attempting to change it so that it might be more clear in what's intended. For I think the law in its present form probably does not express what anyone intended for an area such as Leisure World Seal Beach. The board, your board, has during this past year taken action so that we are attempting to pursue it on a rather narrow construction, but I think a construction that no one can quarrel with until some court makes a determination, because there are no guidelines indicated in this legislation as to exactly what we should do in some circumstances. I'll give you an example. The law says that you have to permit someone in the age levels that President Murchie indicated to reside in your project. But does that necessarily mean that that individual is entitled to use every facility that is enjoyed by a Golden Rain Foundation membership? Those are things that we're going to have to try out. I only tell you this, and I have one purpose in telling you this today. During the next year, you may hear of litigation that we are involved in for Leisure World Seal Beach related to the age discrimination legislation. And the reason we will be in it is really to find out and determine the perimeters of what we may do and what we may not do under the laws that exist, and also continue to work on the changes. So if you hear anything about legal action, it doesn't mean that we have done anything wrong, because no one knows if what we do is wrong or not until some court says so, because it's brand new legislation with no precedent. During this year in the medical center, as you know, there's been a change there, and we've had much in the way of legal work to complete this for you. I think time will tell that this is really the best way, and your board in much wisdom has undertaken this action insofar as the medical center and its operation. Insofar as Leisure World is concerned, as I've indicated, there are so many areas that we have to work in for you, both from the standpoint of taxes to representing you in negotiations with unions. It's been a wonderful thing for me during the 22 years that I've represented you. I don't know if I'll be here 22 more years, but I hope so, and I might see some of the things happen that are going to happen under the trust instruments that we live under, because those are going to be triggered. I figure that probably in the next 45 years we'll have to face those problems. So, thank you for having me here today, and thank you, President Murchie, for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. The subject that Mr. Williams spoke on, that I also spoke on, about the Senior Citizen Housing Bill, probably should be retitled The Lawyer's Paradise. I would like now to introduce Mr. Bill Narang, who is the Executive Vice President of the J.L. Moyer Company, the professional management company employed by the Golden Rain Foundation to conduct the affairs of the community in accordance with the policies and guidelines set by our corporation. Mr. Narang has been before you before, and I introduce him at this time. Bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, fellow board members, and resident of wonderful community in the world, and I mean it. This is my 7th year in front of you, and you all remember Mr. Jack Moyer, who has been here before and gave you certain presentations in the past. I want to take this opportunity today to let you know where our company is, where we stand, and what we are doing at present. J.L. Moyer Company is part of a national property management firm called First Columbia Management, based in Seattle, Washington. At present, the national firm manages 70,000 units all over the country, which include apartments, cooperatives, and condominiums. You are a very significant part of this company. The regional office, which is located in Granada Hills, manages about 30,000 units in California, Nevada, Arizona, and Hawaii. We feel that our experience here at Leisure World and in other parts of the country have given us the opportunity to provide the good services which will increase the value of properties, in this case, the stock that you each possess. Our objective always is to provide you with professional individuals who can carry out their responsibilities in the field. At Leisure World, we have 2 individuals who have given you services in the last year, and I want to recognize one of the individuals you have not met yet, but his name has been mentioned a number of times, Mr. Chuck Brisky, who is the Vice President of Operation for Sales and Brokerage. He's sitting in the audience. I'd like Chuck to please stand up. He has done an outstanding job in accomplishing a record year last year in assisting your directors, providing the guidance and his expertise in the resale market. It is easy to sit here and say that we manage Leisure World, but I want to assure you, as I have said before, many, many years, that when you get paid to do something, you do it with your heart. But when you do a job, such as 100 and some odd directors, as Mr. Murchie mentioned to you, who have been serving Golden Rain Foundation in one another capacity, and these directors who are in this position here, believe me, they don't get paid, and they work not with their heart, with their body, with their soul, with every effort, and they are not getting paid anything. I want to thank each and every one of them for doing a superb job in guiding and leading Leisure World in the past year. And I want to thank those new 3 directors who have decided to serve. I want to thank you for taking that opportunity and giving your time, and sincerely hope that you will give your full assistance in the coming year. In order to recognize those individuals who have done such a remarkable job in the past 4 or 5 years, we at J.L. Moyer Company feel that they should have something to remember, that they have served Leisure World without any financial gains, but to provide the services to this community to make it the best one. We have decided this year we have 3 members leaving, and each one of them is receiving this Golden Globe Award for their services. And I'm going to call each one of them and present this award to them for their services in the last 4 or 5 years. Mr. Hoffman, would you please stand up? Mr. Hoffman has been serving since 1981 to 1985, Golden Rain Foundation Director. We want to thank him, and I know each and every one of you want to thank him for his excellent services.
Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Mr. Clow, who has been with the board since 1980. He's been a Golden Rain Foundation board member and also an assistant secretary from 1980 to 1985. Mr. James Clark.
I don't have any prepared speech. This has caught me unawares. But I must say, now I have a pair of bookends. Thank you.
Mr. Francis Looney, who you all know have served in various capacities and also has been very helpful in the Resale Committee. Being a chairman of that committee, I want to thank him for his services since 1980 through 1985 as secretary and chairman of the Resale Committee. Mr. Looney. I cannot wish to really recognize one individual, but I have to do because he's going to give you his own remarks. I want to let you know that in the past year and a half, since Mr. Lafferty has joined the firm, I know his dedication has been 100%. He's been involved in everything. He has tried his best to use his professionalism and make our company look quite effective in managing your affairs and assisting your day-to-day activities. Mr. Lafferty has done an outstanding job, and he deserves my thanks, and I want to appreciate your help and assistance in understanding a difficult chore that he has to perform. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rang. I'm sure that these Golden Globes will be appreciated by the retiring members. They can put them where they can see them when they get up in the morning and know they don't have to go to a meeting. Now I would like to recognize Mr. John Lafferty, our administrator, who is employed by the J.L. Moyer Company to implement the terms of our management contract with the J.L. Moyer Company. Mr. Lafferty came with us in, I believe it was December of '83, and now he knows where the community is. He has no trouble finding the place on the way to work. And he's here all day and every day, and I'm sure that you even see him walking around the place in his sweatsuit to get the exercise he needs after being in all these meetings. Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. President. For you members and guests who do not have privy to the agenda, you'll be pleased to know that I'm the last speaker on the agenda. You'll be further pleased to know that I don't intend to give a speech. Since I have spoken to some 10 of the mutuals of the 16 and will be speaking to the other 6 within the next 7 to 10 days, I have already given my annual report to your mutual annual meetings. If you, as an individual member of a mutual, have missed that annual meeting, shame on you. You should attend. I want to take this opportunity, however, to thank the members of the Golden Rain Foundation Board. I sincerely appreciate all the help I've gotten over the last 12 months. It's been, as reported by your various committee chair people, it's been a very important year to us at Seal Beach Leisure World. Many major changes have been made and anticipated, and as Mr. Williams has pointed out, we have some other changes probably going to be happening. And I believe some of you thought he said 45 years. I believe he said 4 to 5 years. 45. So we'll be around here when that happens. But I do appreciate the cooperation of the board members. In particular, the various committee chair people. I work very closely with them, and I'm almost in a daily contact with them. I had the opportunity to work very closely with these chairmen throughout the year and found each and every one of them very cooperative. Without leaving, I couldn't go by without saying a special thanks to Mr. Murchie, your president. I understand Mr. Murchie has put in more hours as president of the Golden Rain Foundation than any previous president of the foundation. I've only been here a short time, so I can't confirm that, but any of you ex-presidents out there, if you've worked over 40 or 50 hours a week for 12 months, you have put in more hours because Mr. Murchie has put in 40 to 50 hours a week right along with staff. And lastly, I must thank my staff. Without them, my job as your administrator would be impossible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lafferty. Now, I have a very special pleasure now. Something new has been added to Leisure World. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Albert Whale, who was nominated by the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation as a candidate to serve on the governing board of the Los Alamitos Medical Center as your representative from this community. That governing body has elected Mr. Whale as a member of their board. Mr. Whale, would you please stand up and be recognized? Now that almost ends the program, except that we have something that we always close our meeting with. And so this next item on the agenda is a membership participation by prearrangement. You no doubt have seen the notice in the Golden Rain News entitled, "What is your question?" This method is used to expedite the proceedings of our annual meeting, and when I call on the name of the people who have submitted questions, I would ask them to please come up to the front microphone and state the question in mind. First is Miss Beta Ann Aller. Is Miss Aller in the audience? Would you please come forward to the microphone? Chuck, would you like to move the mic over to the middle aisle and down a bit, because Miss Aller is not very mobile. Would you take it down towards her a little bit?
Thank you. I wanted to ask why they don't have any handicap parking by the pool and why they have only one at the clubhouses. Really, that isn't enough.
All right. I'd like to ask the chairman of the security committee, who is responsible also for parking, to respond to your question.
This subject has come up many times. We have inadequate parking in many areas. Now, the most congested place is at the pool, and the problem that we have with picking out one for the handicapped is whatnot, that we have other residents who wouldn't pay any attention to markings on the walk. They don't pay any attention now to red curbs in many areas. And I think I know where there's a car parked in front of a red curb right now at Alderware and Knollwood, and I can see it right down from the end of my home. Now, that doesn't mean that we are not thinking about the handicapped, but if we put a reserve, an area, somebody's going to get there early in the morning and take it and be there all day, maybe. I'm not sure. However, this is not the end. I will present this to the new chairman, whoever he may be, of the security committee, and as you have heard before, most of these things are done by a committee rather than an individual. So this will not get lost in the shuffle. This will be presented, and we will know this within the next week, who the chairman of the security committee is. Does that sound correct?
That's right.
Well, whenever the committees are announced, I unfortunately had to be relieved of that duty because I have served 3 years, and that is policy. So the security committee, no doubt, at the July meeting will bring up the subject.
Thank you very much.
Okay? You're welcome.
I believe Mrs. Evelyn Schlupp has the next question. Is she in the audience? I don't see anyone. We only had 2 questions for this session, and I'm sorry that the second questioner is not here. So with that, and there is no other further business to come before this meeting is adjourned, and thank you all for coming. You had a packed house today.
Good afternoon. I'm Francis Loney, Secretary of the Golden Rain Board.
And we're here outside Clubhouse 4 in Leisure World, where Group W, in conjunction with the Golden Rain Foundation, has already brought you the annual meeting of the Golden Rain Foundation. This is the 22nd annual meeting. Before the meeting, we did some interviews outside of residents approaching the meeting. And my first guest, would you come in, please? What is your name?
I'm Ann Osias.
And your?
Floyd Irwin.
Floyd Irwin. What mutual are you from, Ann?
I'm in Mutual 11.
Mutual 11. Floyd?
14. Mutual 14.
Mutual 14. Very good. How many meetings? Have you attended annual meetings before?
Oh, many. And I've been on my local board for 2 years.
Wonderful.
No, I haven't.
This is your first annual meeting. We're interested in finding out, Ann, what you expect to get out of coming to the meeting. What was your reason for coming?
I'm in Leisure World 10 years. I feel it's the best investment I've ever made. There have been 10 wonderful years, and I'm interested in the future, what they have in store for us.
Very good.
I've been here 22 years, ever since I think I opened the gate out here, I guess maybe, just as a joke. And I worked a considerable time after I moved in here. It was a wonderful place to retire.
You enjoy being here?
Oh,
yeah.
very much.
Thank you both very much for coming and agreeing to appear on camera. Our next two interviewees, I guess, are available. Won't you step in, please? And your name is?
Ed Kennedy.
And what mutual are you from, Ed?
Mutual number 1.
Mutual number 1.
Eula Kennedy, Mutual number 1.
You're both from Mutual number 1. Yes. You had your board meeting, your mutual board meeting yesterday, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, right in this clubhouse. Have you been to any of these mutual meetings before? Any of these Golden Rain board meetings before?
We moved to Leisure World Seal Beach a little over a year ago, and we did attend last year's Golden Rain Foundation meeting here. We've always attended our meetings. For 40 years, I was interested in union work, and at the expiration of my time, I had to take my retirement at 60. I signed up with the Travelers Insurance Company. If I'm going too fast, 4 years.
Well, let me just, what we're interested in particularly, Ed, today is what do you expect to get out of this meeting and attending it?
What I expect to get out of this meeting is no more than I put into it.
That's a very good answer. And I'm sure you put in your worth. But this is your second annual meeting.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy. Very good. Oh, we have another visitor, and I think I know this person. Sabina. This is Sabina Holland.
How do you do? It's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm sure this is not your first annual meeting. Sabina is on the Golden Rain Board, and she is here for a very specific reason. She has to be up on the platform. What mutual are you in, Sabina?
Mutual 12.
Mutual 12. You don't have elections this year because it's an even-numbered mutual.
No, but it's a privilege to serve on the board. I feel that this is a cooperative that is beautiful, and the more people that contribute to the welfare, the more people that pitch in and do for themselves and their neighbors, the better this place will be and the happier all the people will be.
Very good. Happy to have you aboard with us today, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you inside when they're doing the live broadcast. Very good, Sabina. Here comes another gentleman that I recognize. Mr. Clow, I believe.
Mr. Lee, how are you?
I'm just fine.
Good to see you. I only saw you about 10 o'clock this morning, right?
We had a Resales Committee meeting this morning, that's correct.
And you really handled that perfectly. Got the budget all fixed for 1986, and the oncoming officers have no problems.
Yeah.
Right?
Very good, Jim. Jim, what mutual, you're from Mutual 11?
Mutual 11, yes.
Now, didn't they have an election here recently in Mutual 11?
Yes, they had an election, and Mr. Irving Zeiger is going to take my place on the board.
That's right. You're retiring this year.
Retiring this year. I got tired. So I'm going to get rejuvenated a little.
What do you plan to do in your retirement, Jim?
Well, I'm taking a course in Portipac right now. Do you pronounce that Portipac or Portipac?
That's the Portipac, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think I'll do a little traveling after I get the doctor's permission.
Oh.
Otherwise, I have to lay low for a while. Yeah.
Very good. So next year, well, I was going to ask you too, how many how many Golden Rain Board meetings have you attended?
You mean annual meetings? Yeah. Well, 4 of them. I've been on the board for 4 years, and I went to them before that too.
As
I am what I call a good citizen. I want to know what's going on in Leisure World as much as they will tell me what goes on. A lot of times I can't get the full story of what is really going on.
Well, if you can't get it on the board, I wonder where you can get. Thank you very much for being with us today, Jim, and I wish you lots of luck in your future. And as I started to say earlier, I guess next year you'll be behind the camera instead of out in front of it.
We're going to give it a try, and I'll need a lot of help.
Very good.
Thank you, Francis.
We have... oh, here's 2 more guests. Or at least we thought we had a... would you step in, please? No. Do you want to come over a little bit further? We want to avoid the glare and the light. Can you give me your name, please?
Rosa Dill,
Rosa Dell. And what mutual are you in, Rosa?
Mutual 9.
Oh, Mutual 9. Very good. Do you want to come in a little closer, please? That's right, so you can talk into the mic. We have to get real close.
Take my dark glasses.
Certainly. Be comfortable. Is this your first annual meeting, Rosa?
No, we was here last year.
You were here last year. And this gentleman is?
My husband. This is my husband, Bob.
Won't you step in, please, to the and speak into the microphone? You're Bob Odell?
Bob Dill, D-I-L-L, yes.
No, it's Rosa. Very good, Bob. We're inquiring of people who are coming to the meeting what they expect to get out of this meeting today.
Well, we are here for information, and we're interested, of course, in Golden Rain Foundation. We're naturally interested in any matters pertaining to Leisure World.
Very good. I asked your wife if this was the first meeting that she had attended, and she said no. How many meetings have you attended?
Well, we don't keep an account of them. Those that are interesting, why we attend.
Well, this is the 22nd annual meeting, and I'm sure you haven't been around for all of them, but be interesting to know if you had attended several.
Oh, I moved in 1971, and I moved out in 1978.
Oh, I see. You're back and forth.
I moved back.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming in. Do we have any more? Oh, good afternoon. And what is your name, please?
Len Sterling.
Oh, Mr. Sterling, that name sounds familiar. What mutual are you in, Len?
11.
Mutual 11. You have a new board member from your mutual?
Yes. Ernie Allgood.
I'm thinking of the Golden Rain board member.
The Golden Rain.
Yeah, Mr. Clow was just interviewed, and he is retiring from the Golden Rain board.
And who's taking over?
I think he said Mr. Zeiger.
Oh, Irwin Zeiger, yes, that's right.
Very good. How many annual meetings have you attended previous to this one?
About 17.
Wow. You're an old timer at it. What do you expect to get out of attending this meeting?
Well, all the good news.
Oh, do you expect some good news? Fine.
Good news.
Yeah. Your representative will be up on the platform today?
Right, I understand so.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Erwin, for coming to our... Leonard Sterling. I've got you confused with the new board member already. And we'll be seeing you inside. We have to close down here because it's time to get the camera in. Yeah, very good. Thank you all for... Okay. This has been our interview of residents outside Clubhouse 4 prior to the 22nd annual meeting of the Golden Rain Board.